$146 million. That's how much the Pirelli budget for F1 is annually, and to put that into context, that's more money than Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri and Williams each spend per year. Having signed a new deal that will take the Italian tyre manufacturer until 2023, and the 18-inch wheels providing a large overhaul for the 2022 season, Pirelli have a lot on their plate in the coming years, with the company focusing on giving us higher degradation tyres, even though we still apparently see one-stop races every week. In this video, I want to discuss if we should bring back multiple tyre manufacturers into F1 and whether that would be a good thing or bad thing. Before we get into this video, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Yeah, subscribe to the channel, drop the video a like, it really helps me out, takes you absolutely no time, and watch through to the end and let me know what you guys think. Since 1992, we've had a single tyre manufacturer in the sport for 22 out of the 30 years, with there being a 6-year stint from 2001 to 2006 where Michelin and Goodyear went head to head, and in 97 and 98, Goodyear and Bridgestone went head to head. With the new generation of F1 cars coming in just over a year's time, as said before, we'll see the new 18-inch wheels being used, and this will bring a new design philosophy to how Pirelli develop the tyres, especially as we have lower profile tyres that are more road relevant. When we look at modern cars, unless you're driving something like an off-roader, they use low profile tyres. This could help Pirelli on their commercial side with their P0 range in particular. They could introduce more road relevant technologies into tyres such as sensors or even treads. Now in all seriousness, this could be something that's looked at in a few years time as F1's aiming to be more road relevant. I know we're not quite Formula E, but you know, every road car has tread on its tyres, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it in the next 10 to 15 years. Now remember that $146 million? That's split 50% to track activities and 50% to trackside marketing and sponsorship. So imagine if we use that 50% marketing and sponsorship budget purely for track activities. We'd see much more developed and sophisticated compounds that would probably have an even greater road relevance. And if we had two tyre manufacturers going ahead with these sorts of budgets, we constantly see improved technologies developing and pushing the boundary on what people think is possible through tyre development. So let's discuss this possibility, as at the moment all the focus on the tyres is around the degradation and not the winning performance of them, as we constantly see the driver who is most able to take care of them in the leading group often wins. Look at Lewis at Turkey, or even Sergio Perez, who were able to take their intermediate tyres past its graining phase and form what was being called the interslick. But then when we also look back at the British Grand Prix, where we had Daniel Kvyat, Carlos Sainz, Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton all having tyre failures where the tyre clearly wasn't suited to the track or weather conditions at that time of year. Or another example of this would be back in 2013 in Great Britain, where there were tyres blowing up left, right and centre. Now, if we had another tyre manufacturer in the sport, this would constantly be pushing Pirelli to develop better and more competitive compounds. This would add more excitement to the sport, as you may have different cars suiting different compounds. Just look back to the 2000s, where Bridgestones were more suited to the cooler conditions, while Michelins were suited to the warmer ones. And in the wet, teams were only allowed to use a single type of wet weather tyre, and Michelin went much more along the lines of a full wet tyre, while Bridgestone went more like intermediates. Now, bringing in a new tyre manufacturer would introduce some challenges in that the manufacturer would need to test their tyres on modern F1 cars, but the current rules around testing are very limited, and it would make it hard for the new manufacturer to come into the sport, as they may be left in a similar position of that of Honda back in 2015, where they had a product that was massively underdeveloped and not suitable for Formula 1. For this to happen, it may require more days allocated for testing, as it would allow more development of the compounds, but it would also benefit the teams that are able to go testing more. It would also require for there to be a change in regulations around the amount of components used within the season to allow the teams to do the testing that would be required to get the compounds up to the standard we need for Formula 1. Yes, every team wants to go testing more and develop their car as best as possible in track conditions. With F1 wanting to streamline the costs, it's just not looking possible to do that. In F1, we know competition forces developments, and these developments are consistent in our sport. So why not bring in a new kind of competition to breed more development, as competition between two manufacturers, even tyre manufacturers, is exciting. We could see something like McLaren did and staged a move to a new engine that is unproven, and it may not pay off. A team could choose to go to a new tyre manufacturer, and their tyres may not work with the car. Just think Haas in 2019, when they had tyres working over a single lap, but when they had to be more consistent and lower on the pace, they couldn't get the tyres turned on. That sort of thing could happen. Do I think it would be a good idea to bring another tyre manufacturer into the sport? Well, to be brief, no. I don't think it would be a good idea to have another tyre manufacturer in the sport, as for one, tyres don't provide that much of an advantage compared to back in the day of Bridgestone versus Michelin. There just wouldn't be such an impact on performance differential created by bringing in a new tyre manufacturer. Secondly, a lot of teams don't see it fitting within F1's new ethos of closer racing and lower costs, as the teams already pay €1.5 million for a supply of tyres for a season, so diluting the money going to those manufacturers is a surefire way to have these tyre manufacturers leave the sport due to having less and less money, particularly if they're seen as the worst tyre and aren't winning races with those tyres. And thirdly, let's just take a look back to when there were two tyre manufacturers in the sport. We had two of the most dominant seasons ever in 2002 and 2004, where Ferrari won by such massive margins. Imagine if a tyre manufacturer came along and went to develop a tyre specifically for Mercedes. So then guys, those are just my thoughts and everything. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like I said before, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, drop the video a like. Thank you guys very much for watching. Bye guys.